Some say this is a lousy time to be a woman. More than 500,000 women are trafficked across borders each year. Every day, an estimated 25,000 girls are married off against their will. And when it comes to the booming emerging markets, 40% of child marriages occur in India. And in 2008, an estimated 1 million girls in China were missing at birth. In the US, more than a third of single-mother households live below the poverty line, even as they're raising more of America's kids than ever before. Their unemployment rate hit 12.4% last year. On the other hand, some people say this is the best of time to be a woman. In the US and Europe, women earn almost 60% of university degrees. 40% of wives in the US now out-earn their husbands. And researcher Liza Mundy predicts they will be the majority within a generation. In the booming emerging markets, women represent 60% of the million-plus university graduates entering Brazil's labor force. Half of the world's self-made female billionaires are in China, and in India, 15% of large company CEOs are women, according to Sylvia Ann Hewlett. So who's right, the bad news folks or the good news folks? The truth is, they both are. As you see, there is a huge and growing gap between the good news and the bad. So what separates the two? Sustained access to opportunity. For far too long, and in too many places, both rich and poor, suffocated opportunity is both the old tradition and the new normal. And we all have gotten used to it, and way too accepting of it. But poverty of income does not equal poverty of imagination. And whether we want to be or not, we are all in this together. Global growth is the central issue shaping our shared future. And the math simply does not add up when women are left out of the equation. Increasing the share of women with secondary education by 1% boosts annual per capita income growth by 0.3 percentage points for years. Women-owned businesses now account for 16% of all US jobs. And the Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that if women farmers had the same access to resources as men, we could cut the number of hungry people in this world by up to 150 million. So you see, these are not about women's issues. This is about a prosperity gap and a possibility gap that harms all of us. Nearly half of all the available productive potential of females is under or unutilized. Nearly half. The UN estimates that the Asia-Pacific economy alone would gain $90 billion annually if women had better access to better jobs. And as the World Economic Forum notes, maximizing access to female talent is a strategic imperative for business. Suffocated opportunity and denied ambition offer a sure route to global stagnation. We simply do not have the luxury of wasting the talent we have. And yet we still are. But for those of us who are comfortable pulling up the ladder behind us and living in a cocoon of comfort, we will not make us richer or safer. Drawbridge economics will only lead us backward and deprive us of the teachers and scientists and engineers we need. In India, I wrote a story about a program that paid parents to keep their girls alive and unmarried until age 18. And what was incredible about it was in the process of not marrying off their girls as girls, they kept them in school and watched as they became fascinated by math and science and began dreaming of their careers as teachers and nurses and doctors, careers that would pay for their parents' old age. And that got me thinking about the three things that really do make the difference between poverty and plenty. First, entrepreneurship. In Herat, Afghanistan, I recently wrote a story about Roya Mahbub, a 25-year-old girl who turned her hobby, building websites in university, into a software company that provides solutions for universities and hospitals and corporations. She employs men and women in a country whose unemployment rate hovers around 40%. Each day, with the support of her father, she braves threatening phone calls and society disapproval, and sometimes night letters, just to open her doors and go to work. Like Malala Yousafzai, she is part of a young generation of homegrown role models. Secondly, there's education. And this one is very personal to me. My mother found herself at 28 with a 5-year-old to support and no college education to do it with. She really believed that the only thing that would make the difference between our constrained present and the future she wanted for me was education. So she lied about our address for years so that I could go to the Maryland public school that she thought would give me the better chance to thrive. And then there is investment. Corporations, NGOs, and banks are now investing in women leaders. Women like Helen, who I met in Liberia. She runs a waste management company that she dreams of making the biggest one in Liberia. She grew her profits and puts 2 of her nieces and nephews through college because she grew her ability to run a profit and loss statement and think about how to expand into new businesses. And corporations are also thinking about how to help women suppliers, because they see investing in women who are part of the supply chain not as some nice to have, but as a must do, because women are their customers and their market. And part of narrowing the gap between where we are and where we could be lies here in this room in Washington, D.C. with all of you. Because another big gap we see is the one between the rhetoric about how important women are and the reality of how wide the wallet opens when it comes to boosting their chances. Words don't pay rent or build schools or open businesses. And as someone who worked in finance, I truly believe the numbers tell a story worth reading. Just 2% of post-conflict budgets target women's empowerment. Women's share of corporate procurement is less than 1% globally. And women attract about 5% of venture capital. And it's not dollars alone that tell a story. Far too often, we don't want to touch women's stories because we see them as soft or special interest or the surest path to a career cemetery. But who are we waiting for to change that? And how in the world can we possibly see women's stories as soft when the work they do is so very hard? Half the population cannot be happy with a day or a week. And March International Women's Day would have to last a whole lot longer to make the difference the global economy needs. So talk may be cheap, but inaction will be costly, because the dividends in terms of lives saved and girls educated and jobs created are enormous. And there is so much good news, because while it's easy to think that the solution lies elsewhere, the story of the power of the purse tells something very different. According to Boston Consulting Group, women in the US control nearly 3/4 of US household spending. Global consumer spending by women is projected to reach $28 trillion by 2014. And adding all the numbers up, women represent a growth market that's bigger than China and India combined. So you see, women are at the core not just of the problems, but of the solutions. And the solutions benefit not just women, but children and men, and indeed whole societies. So there is no time to wait for others to fill the gap. We vote for the world we want every single day with our wallets and our words. And it is time for us to see our voices and our dollars as our shovels, to invest in the infrastructure that will allow women and girls to thrive. We will never know what potential we lose when women and girls are the world's least exploited economic resource. And I would ask you, what if the next Steve Jobs were married off at age 11? Just think about what a loss that would be for all of us, because unleashing opportunity is everyone's work. This is not about women's stuff. This is about winning. a more secure future, a richer future for everyone, at a time when the extremes of inequality threaten to topple the very foundations upon which we are standing. If we live in an issue ghetto, we will get nowhere. And it is time for all of us to say enough and to build an army of opportunity fighters who says that no little girl should be told it is okay to be denied an education. No 13-year-old should be told she has no choice when being forced to marry a man 4 decades her senior. And no woman should be told it is acceptable when adulthood marks the graveyard for her dreams. A lot of people in this town have talked recently about women's ambition. But I want to talk to you instead about power, because each of us has more than we think, and you have to recognize it to exercise it. We can invest in those who invest in girls' education. We can support businesses that support women. And we can see our dollars as seed capital to support companies that share our values. I almost didn't make it here tonight because my husband and I were in the hospital with our 10-week-old son. And even as he started to get better, I thought, how in the world am I ever going to be here and focus and be with you tonight? And then I thought of my mom and the army of single moms I grew up with in PG County, which is 15 minutes and about 1 million economic miles away from here in Washington. No one ever asked our mothers if they felt up to going to work, even when their kids were sick, or their cars broke down, or our apartment flooded. They simply got on with it because we needed them and because no one else was going to do it if they didn't. Counted out and dismissed by so many as undermining values, they taught us the value of hard work and determination and perseverance. And they told us it was up to us to fill the gaps we see, no matter how much else was tugging at our attention. They believed that if they took care of one another and sacrificed for us and worked 2 and sometimes 3 jobs to pay for piano lessons and soccer cleats, and we somehow managed to fill the gap between the world we lived in and the plenty they wanted for us, we would understand that we had a responsibility to acknowledge their example when we were in rooms like this with change agents like you who have the power to change the world. And to change the world not just for women, but for a world that will not thrive without their contributions. So no, we don't have it all, but we have ourselves. And that is more than enough to make the difference for all of us. Thank you.